Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Sleepin with Pete. So first of all, for those of you that have no idea what this is and why I'm talking like this, if you've never seen any of my other videos for this series, I'll put a link down below to the intro so that you understand what's going on. For those of you that have watched the first or listened, welcome back. I'm so sorry for taking so long to put out a second episode. The mic that I was using kind of broke and was crashing my audio recording program. And I realized that, well, I have this mic. It's the PlayStation Eye, actually, for the PlayStation 3. And it actually records fairly decent audio, and I'm going to use this in the meantime until I'm able to get a better professional quality mic. So it'll have to do. But I am back with another episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the first one. I know I got a lot of great feedback, and people have been begging for a second episode. So I'm sorry it took me so long to get this one out. And, well, I figured for this topic, we can cover something that I love, maybe even more than collecting video games itself, and that's video game collectibles and merchandise. So, what do I mean when I say video game collectibles and merchandise? Well, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean, store standees and store displays and signs that you get from like a GameStop or a Best Buy. It can mean figures, it can mean Amiibos, it can mean plushes, it can mean anything that's branded with video game characters that are not a video game. So I've made a list here because this is a pretty big topic and I wanted to cover a lot of different things, so I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So, what are video game collectibles? I think you have an idea. If you look around my room and my collection tours and stuff, even behind me here you can see I have a lot of video game collectibles. I've been collecting them almost as long as video games, but in the last 6 years or so, I really sort of ramped up and started to collect gaming collectibles pretty hardcore. So the one reason why I think it's really great to collect video game memorabilia in addition to games is that it makes your game room really stand out. It makes it unique. It adds a certain personality to your game room. Anybody can collect games and throw them up on a shelf. And sure, the way that you arrange the games may be unique. It may be different because only you put your games on the shelf, in this order. Or you have a shelf that comes out from this side of the wall and wow, it's like you have aisles in your game room. I mean, yeah, that's unique, but the only thing that makes a game room truly stand out is when you start peppering in little figures and plushes and display signs. It really shows your passion for games, because if you're buying a standee, like a tall 6-foot tall standee for a certain game, that shows that you absolutely love that game or that series. If you're buying a plush for, if you're buying a statue for Tomb Raider and Lara Croft and putting it on your shelf, that shows that you're going out of your way to show your passion for Tomb Raider. One of my favorite things when I watch room tours and collection videos has always been to not just look at the games, but to look at what collectibles people have. Like what do they put in their game room, like signs and posters, and that's collectibles too. Posters that you tear out of a magazine, that's memorabilia. But I want to make something clear. When you collect game memorabilia and you've gone into the deep end, it's only when you go out of your way to seek out certain things. So buying a collector's edition for, say, Skyrim that comes with a dragon statue, sure, that shows that you like Skyrim, but to me that says that you're a big Skyrim fan, you're caught up in the hype, and you just wanted to plunk down the $150 or whatever it was to pre-order the most expensive collector's edition that you can get. You put the statue on your shelf and that's that. It says a lot more to me when somebody goes out of their way to say pre-order first for figures or a gaming head statue, because that shows that you're not just impulse buying something, or let me rephrase that, you're not just impulse buying a video game that comes with a collectible. You're going out of your way to buy something that means a lot to you, and if you're buying a statue for a game, it probably means a lot to you because they're pretty expensive. Nothing against people that only get their collectibles from collector's editions, but if you want to go to the next level, you have to branch outside of getting your collectibles pre-packaged with your games that you're buying. So where do you get collectibles outside of collector's editions? Well, there's eBay. That's where you're going to have to go for a majority of it, because sadly a lot of the really cool collectible and rare stuff comes from probably a country that you're not living in. Even that includes the US. There's a lot of cool memorabilia from Japan. A lot of the really cool exclusive stuff is from Japan. For myself, in collecting Sonic the Hedgehog, a lot of great stuff came out of, the UK. There's a lot of stuff that comes from Japan, obviously, but then you get these little things that come from, Germany, and they're all over the world. So you kind of have to branch out to get into the real nitty gritty and find those really unique collector's items that normally you would never be able to find. But yes, if you want to start out, it's great to just go into your local Toys R Us, go into your local mall, go into your GameStop. They sell collectibles. I mean, it's starting to become more and more mainstream to go into a GameStop and find video game toys. Toys R Us is your best bet if you're a fan of Mario and Sonic stuff. They always have a large selection of that. But if you want to branch outside of just Sonic and Mario and a couple of really overproduced toys that wind up in Toys R Us, you're gonna have to go on eBay. And here's where the thing about price and value comes in. You're gonna be very surprised once you start branching outside of your new collectibles that you can find in stores now. When you start looking at vintage collectibles and older stuff, I think you may be surprised at the prices. Some of this stuff will fetch more money than you ever paid for anything in your collection. A good example, I think it's well known that I have the Sonic the Hedgehog wine glass for the 10th anniversary. That's something that I paid almost $1,000 for. It's rare, very hard to find, but I wanted it for my collection. Someone once offered me something around the figures of $2,500, $3,000 for my Supersonic Sonic the Fighters plush doll. I didn't pay anywhere near that, but that just shows you my dedication to collecting that I didn't even think twice about selling it. There's no way I was letting it go. Most people don't believe me when I tell them that my Sonic the Hedgehog collection is possibly worth more than most of my game collection. I mean, some of the stuff that people pay for these kind of things is extraordinary. A single Sonic doll will be $500, and it's this little stuffed animal that doesn't look like it can be worth anything. You have a little figure, $100, $200, because it's just so rare and hard to find. A pin. Pins have been known to go for $50 to $100, depending on the rarity. I don't even want to think some of the prices I've paid for some of the stuff in my Sonic collection. But the thing about this is most of this stuff continues to go up in value. It doesn't decrease in value like most games do. When a collectible comes out, it just tends to go up from there because they go out of print. It's not like a game that depreciates in value most of the time. A lot of this stuff just continues to go up and up in price, and if you're the kind of person that keeps stuff brand new, sealed, complete in the box, it's just going to keep going up in value. That's why when you go on eBay and you look at old vintage collectibles, I mean, complete in the box for some of those things are unbelievable. There was a Link on Epona figure that I sold complete in the box a couple of years ago for $80, and I checked just recently and the thing is going for $300 to $500. People are asking, and people are paying that. It just shows you that video game collectibles are nothing to laugh at. These are an incredible investment if you look at it from that standpoint. I don't look at it that way, but just from a collector's value, these things are worth a lot of money. I have so many things in my collection here that are easily, singly, one item are worth more than most of my rare games. So this is where you have to decide what you want to collect. This is where collecting certain games or series comes into play, because obviously it's difficult to collect everything under the sun. You can try doing it, but it's not as satisfying unless you try collecting for a certain game or series or character. Like my Sonic collection, I find it very gratifying to add stuff to my collection, because if I find something I don't have that's vintage, I go for it. And sometimes I place limits on myself, I really don't collect newer Sonic stuff anymore because there's just so much of it. I don't have the room for it, so I kind of limit myself to the older, more rare 90s Sonic items, which I'm fine with. So I find great joy in buying a little tiny Sonic figure, more so than you would believe. If I got a hold of a Sonic figure that I have one of my collection for so long, that's vintage and hard to get, I'd probably get more joy out of that than buying like a new $60 game. It's hard to explain unless you're a game memorabilia collector. But getting back to sub-collections, so some of the examples, obviously you guys know I collect Sonic, but I have a shelf dedicated to my favorite game of all time, Eco, and there's not a lot of merchandise out there for it, and that's what makes it really fun to collect for it, because when you do find that one item that's really hard to find for this game, it's a lot of fun to just add it to the shelf, and over time it starts to grow and grow, and you're like, wow, look at all this effort and time that I put into putting together this collection of stuff for this game series that most people don't even know most of this stuff exists for. Another collection I have is a Klonoa collection for that platformer series that not a lot of people know about from Namco. That has a lot of rare merchandise, and I put a lot of work and time into searching and finding this stuff. There was a time where I was really fixated and obsessed with Koopa Troopa from Mario. So I put together a little Koopa Troopa collection, and I probably have something obscene like 50 different Koopa Troopa items, believe it or not. Magic Koopa, I started collecting for that. I have, little sub-collections for everything. I have a little Final Fantasy shelf with all different Final Fantasy characters, so it's really fun when you sort of hone in. And if you're new to collecting this kind of stuff, I recommend, instead of just buying everything, find one game, one series that you really like. Something that has a lot of games that's not relatively hard to collect for, like a Final Fantasy, like Tomb Raider, like Mortal Kombat, like Street Fighter, like Mario or Sonic. There's a lot of different things out there that you can collect for that, believe it or not, like Crash Bandicoot, Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong has a ton of merchandise for Donkey Kong Country, and it's not that expensive. Like there's Little Big Planet. Little Big Planet has a ton of merchandise. Those are just a few examples, and then from there, once you start to build up one shelf with one series collection, you might find that it's for you or not for you, and that's when you can either stop or keep going and collecting video game merchandise, and then branch out into other series. So how do you display all this stuff once you start collecting it? Once you start getting a sizable collection? Well, for my Sonic collection, I use the IKEA D-Tall shelving units, which I think are about $100 each. Glass display light-up towers, essentially, that have, they have 4 shelves. And they make great display units for people that are just getting into collecting, and they don't take up too much room. They're affordable. They look really nice. Other than that, just get a bookshelf with some deep shelving in it. That way you have plenty of room to kind of stack stuff like I do behind me here. But you want to keep something in a glass display case like my Sonic stuff when possible, because of dust. Dust can be a problem when you start getting a lot of stuff, so if you don't like cleaning your collection and kind of just going through it and lightly dusting it, or if it's not in a room that's well ventilated or whatever to keep out the dust, you're gonna probably want to put it in a display case when possible. Also, you want to keep it out of the heat. It's very important as well. You don't want to keep stuff in the sun. It will fade certain collectibles, so that's something to keep in mind. The problems with collecting becomes storage. So if you're the kind of person, such as myself, that when you get a statue, you like to take it out of the box, right? So that can become an issue when you buy all these statues, these First Force figure statues, and then suddenly you have 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 boxes from collecting all these different big statues and figures, and and if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to throw anything out, this stuff is going to accumulate, and it starts to take up a lot of room. A lot of room that you can be using to store other stuff, not just gaming, but just stuff. It takes up a lot of room. So you have to think ahead of time, maybe go on eBay and try and buy stuff that doesn't come with a box. You save money. You're not going to have it in the box anyway, so if you're buying a figure, don't buy it brand new in the box. The collector in you might want it that way, but be very picky and try and buy stuff loose. It'll save you money, and then you don't have the box to store. Take stuff out of the box and throw it out if it's truly not going to be worth much. Like if it's a new toy that you can get in Toys R Us, take it out of the box. throw away the packaging. Use your willpower to overcome that sort of like keep it in the box mentality. Because when you start collecting figures, action figures, the type that come in like a hanging box that you can like hang on the wall or whatever, if you start hanging these things on the wall, they take up a lot of room, wall space, that you can be using for shelving units or something. Also, it's dangerous price-wise. This stuff can add up, especially if you get in really deep and you start using Japanese auction sites like Yahoo Japan Auctions, where you're suddenly, instead of using eBay, you're now shopping directly in Japan and then having to pay customs fees and additional fees and shipping fees, and suddenly that $10 figure that you bought is now about a $35 figure. So be careful when you get into that realm of import collecting. I also wanted to cover the topic of Amiibos just a little bit, because I plan on doing my own video on these things. Amiibos are perfect for new memorabilia collectors, and I know a lot of you are getting into collecting Amiibos. It's probably your first time really collecting video game figures for a lot of you, and I think that's great. They're readily available. There's the fun and challenge of going to the stores and trying to get your pre-orders in and collecting them all. But you'll find that there's a lot of really cool merchandise out there for a lot of these Amiibo characters that is a lot, more unique to own. And you're buying a lot of merch for game characters that you probably don't care much about, like Wii Fit Trainer. Really? How many of you really want a Wii Fit Trainer figure? Not a lot. You're doing it to collect everything. So it's good to kind of place a limit sometimes on what you decide to collect. Like myself, I don't have a single Amiibo. I eventually want to get the Sonic Amiibo to put that in my collection, but that's about it. And the reason why I don't feel that I need to collect Amiibos is because I already have everything you see behind me, and they take up a lot of space. So I guess I should have done this earlier on, but I really got into collecting video game memorabilia when it came to Sonic the Hedgehog. When I was younger, I got a Sonic stuffed animal, a Sonic book, a Sonic figure, just a couple of Sonic items, and I always had like a little place off in my collection where I displayed them. And this happened during YouTube. If you look back at my old videos, you'll see that one of my earliest room tours shows, or my early Sonic collection video I did, shows just a very small shelf, I guess you can say, of Sonic stuff, not a lot. And then suddenly, a few years later, I have this enormous collection. I sort of became infatuated with collecting merchandise when I figured out that I enjoyed it more than game collecting. I really enjoyed building a collection and putting it in a shelf and watching it grow and evolve. It was just so much more fun than sticking a game on a shelf. Like putting a collectible on a shelf was just so much more gratifying to me. And after Sonic stuff, probably the earliest sign that I was getting into that was I got, in a Crane game machine, I got a Crash Bandicoot stuff plush and a Spyro plush. And it started just snowballing from there, and I can remember my first store standee was a huge 6-foot-tall God of War standee. That thing was huge. I think it may have been one of my old room tour videos. I think it was. It was like Kratos holding Medusa's head, and that's another problem with collecting this kind of stuff. It takes up a lot of room. And that was using prime real estate for more shelving for my games, and sadly it just didn't pay, because it was worth about $80 to $100. It just didn't pay for me to pack that up and ship it, so I just tore down the thing and threw it out. That's like one of the only times I've ever done that. Do I regret it? Not really, because I didn't feel like shipping such a large standee off. It just wasn't worth it to me. And then the statue collecting. There are some people that really get into collecting statues. Problem with statues are you have to really try and display them properly, and you're going to want to have a lot of shelving space for them. I myself, I have, not including my Sonic stuff, I have like I have like maybe 5 statues or so outside of Sonic. And I'm very selective in that stuff. One of my favorite things to collect are small counter standees. Those are the little cardboard standees that are small enough to fit on a shelf in a store. And those are my absolute favorite because they're really cool, they're really unique, they're hard to find. And you'd be surprised how many they make for obscure games. And they don't take up too much room. Fortunately, collecting posters is sort of a thing of the past for me. Because, well, posters take up a lot of wall space, and all of my wall space is dedicated to games and collectibles. There's really no room for posters anymore. I think that's pretty much it in terms of some of the topics that I wanted to cover. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully it maybe inspired you to try collecting game collectibles, because it's sort of got this negative stereotype where when you tell people that you have a room filled with thousands of game figures and plushes, they immediately think it's weird if they don't understand it. But what's the difference between that and people that collect like stamps or sneakers or like baseball merchandise? I mean, it's just something that people collect, and to be quite honest with you, my collection of collectibles is probably worth way more than most of other people's collections outside of the realm of video games. It's not childish. Collect what you want. If you love it, collect it. I have no shame in owning a collection of, up there, probably like 100 different pink Kirby figures and plushes. Collect what you guys want. If you enjoy it, have fun. You have one life to live. So enjoy it. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the second episode of Sleepin' with Pete. Sorry it wasn't quite as long as the first one, but there's only so much I can say about, video game collectibles. Anyway, leave your suggestions down below for future Sleepin' with Pete episodes. Hopefully I put some of you to sleep. If not, thanks for watching, and have a good night.